Hi, this is Annik, your host. I'm from Speaker Express, and we are a London-based speaking community helping you to learn how to market yourself as a speaker, get on more stages, and use speaking for business growth. We're running different events and accelerators here in London, including the topics of confidence, brand message, signature talk, sales, your pitch, getting booked, and profile building. Now, here today, we are joined by Maria Franzoni from, what's it called? Maria Franzoni Limited, exactly. And today's everything about getting booked. And Maria runs a really successful speaker bureau and has worked with amazing people like Richard Branson, Neil Armstrong, Steve Wozniak, Liza Minnelli, to only name a few. And she's also the founding member of the European Association of Speaker Bureaus. And she was a head judge at our Female Speakers Conference Awards earlier this year. Now, Maria says about herself that she's a typical Leo and she even has a really long mane. So make sure you check her out. She's a very pleasant, amazing English Italian, and if the stars are aligned for you, you will get some really strong speaking questions answered. And over to you, Maria. What would you add? What haven't I said about you? And you know what I'm always interested in is something you wouldn't normally share with people when you meet them for the very first time.
Well, there you go. So, okay, let me share something I wouldn't normally share. I mean, first of all, I'm never referred to as pleasant. So that's one thing I wouldn't normally share. That's very kind of you to say that I'm pleasant. I think probably the better word for me is I'm direct. I don't pull my punches. I tell you it as it is. So pleasant. I would love to be pleasant. That's really sweet. Thank you so much.
But you know what? Someone for me who's honest is very pleasant. Remember, I'm German. We love that directness, that I'm sometimes missing here. If you're, based in the UK, British or English, I give you permission to be a bit more direct with us, right?
Right. Okay, understood. I have permission.
Awesome. And you are super direct in the first place. Anyway, one thing you shared the other day, and now it's out there because I'm going to tell everyone, you like online shopping. You're a bit of a hoarder, and you should maybe post some photos of your garage.
Oh no, I didn't know you were going to. I did share that actually, didn't I? I remember. Yes, I shouldn't have done that. Yes, I'm one of those people who can't resist an advert. So I have to stop watching the the online tele shopping adverts or whatever it's called, the TV channels.
Yeah.
I always think, if I had that, my life would be better. And then, a year later, I'll find it still in its box and I haven't used it. But I'm like that with exercise machines. They keep developing all these new different exercise machines where you're going to get really slim and really toned. I've got loads that they're there. I've unpacked them and I've put them out and thinking, okay, I'll look great now because I've got the machine. Haven't used it, but it's there.
That's maybe a really good job for one of your speakers who maybe doesn't have a gig and they can come around and make you some money by doing a garage sale, right?
I know. Terrible. I'm terrible.
Let's talk about speaker bureaus. And I think first question I have is, what does a speaker bureau actually do? How do they work with their clients? And most importantly, how are they different to a speaker agent?
Okay, so I think until you're in the world of speaking and until you've actually dealt with a speaker bureau, you probably have no idea that we exist. And I didn't know about speaker bureaus at all until I started working for one. So a speaker bureau is a resource for clients who are running conferences, events, masterclasses, looking for expertise in some shape or form, might be for an advisor or consultant. So we serve the client, even though we're called a speaker bureau, we serve the client actually requiring the expert or the speaker. And normally that client would come to us and say, this is my requirement, this is what I want to achieve. And they would ask us for our guidance and advice because it's our job to know who the top people are in that field out there delivering, who's current, who's hot. So that's what we tend to do. You also said, what's the difference between a bureau and an agent? So a bureau will have a huge number of speakers on their books, and they don't answer to the speaker in terms of the business they bring. They answer to the client and serve the client. They obviously look after the speaker and support the speaker, but an agent actually supports the speaker. So an agent is there to help the speaker with their business and make sure they have enough work, whether it's TV or whether it's speaking or whatever it happens to be. So there's different focuses. The focus of a bureau is on the client, providing them the speaker expertise. The focus on the agent is looking after the talent. So it's the other side.
So what you say for anyone, because we get this a lot at Speak Express, we work with a lot of up and coming speakers, and often I hear them saying, oh, I wish I would find an agent, then my marketing would be sorted. You know, I don't have to look for gigs and do all the really difficult business side of it, and I just rock up and speak.
I mean, that's in the ideal world, but there's very few, even very few agents that will take somebody on unless they're already established to a certain level. So bureaus aren't interested in beginners and newbies at all. There may be specialist bureaus who specialise in newbies, but people who work in who fish in my pond, if you like, we're not interested in new people, unless it's somebody who has just stepped down as, you know, as a CEO of a big brand, or has just done something like, you know, I don't know, crossed the Atlantic single-handedly, you know, on a cigarette packet, whatever they might have done, then it's a story, and then they don't have to have speaking experience because it's what they've done that makes them relevant and current.
Yeah.
Agents also really want to have people who already have some kind of established career, who then want them to take them to the next step. There are some agents who will take you from beginner to do things for you, but usually I think, and I'm not an expert in this area, but you probably have to pay those people to do that rather than them take a cut of your bookings, whereas normally a bureau and an agent will take a percentage of what they get you. Somebody who's having to do all of that marketing, all that work, will probably charge you to do that. It's a different model.
Yeah, makes sense. So anyone out there listening and really dreaming, it's like, wow, you know, I'd love to add speaking to my expertise portfolio. When we talk money, what do we talk about? About someone who isn't a beginner, who is really good, and, you know, or maybe just even, you know, people you work with, roughly, like, where's the money? Like, how much can you make?
Well, that's a really, really huge question. That's sort of a bit like how long is a piece of string. That's an English thing we say. So that's really huge. So first of all, it depends who you're selling to, who your target market is. You know, if you are a speaker who is working with schools or working with the public sector, your rates are going to be very different to somebody working with blue chip companies or, you know, corporates. But your expertise may be of the same level. So it's not, you know, who's your target market, but also what's the value you're bringing, what's the problem you're solving, how current and topical are you very much in demand? There isn't an answer that is black and white at all to that question. And it's really what the market will pay for you. So that's a really challenging question. I can't answer it in black and white.
Okay, makes sense. I'm not sure if I let you off the hook yet. Like, as an example, you know, let's say, just take like a random example. I don't know. You must, just so people get like a little bit of an idea, you know, what one can ask for, maybe even if they're in the process of negotiating with a bureau.
Right, okay. So most bureaus, again, sort of the tier that I'm in, won't look at a speaker until they're established. So we're not going to be looking at anybody who's charging anything in the hundreds.
Yeah.
You have to be in the thousands at least. So if you're in the hundreds, that doesn't mean to say that you won't get booked and you won't get business. But because you've got to think about, we take a percentage of the speaking fee that's negotiated. So if you're charging £500, which is nothing wrong with that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if we're getting 20% of that, that's £100. You know, that doesn't cover the admin that you have to do just to create the contract on a booking. So you're not going to be working at that kind of level. So the only way you'd be working at that kind of level if you're a bureau, and there may be some working at that level, is if you're doing huge volumes. And more often than that, that's usually, you get all of these online registers with lots of speakers where they register. You're more likely to get lower price speakers there. There are a few higher ones. So I'm umming and ahhing a lot here, which is not great, but not great for speakers, but it's okay for me because I don't speak. So there you go. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Because I think we had like a little discussion on Facebook, like Anna Wintour from Vogue, like she could reel in like $100,000 for...
I cannot comment on her actual fee because I would have to go and check, but it's going to be high. It's going to be high.
Yeah, okay.
And part of the fee is the recognition of the profile
that she has
and
built.
Also what you have achieved and what you built. And what people don't think about, and the clients as well as speakers, is that if somebody's worked for 30 years and they have huge expertise and they are seen as one of the leaders in an industry or in a field, you're asking them to come and give you their expertise and apply it to your audience and your business. That's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, totally. I understand. Makes sense. So if you're not heading up Vogue and, yes, you run a business and now you think about, I have 15 years of expertise. I want to turn this into speaking and an additional revenue stream. Like, what are the things one has to do? Like, obviously, really brushing up their speaking skills. I'm guessing the better you are on stage and the more impact you have, the higher your chances of being booked.
I mean, that's a given. That actually is a basic that you should be able to do anyway. And that actually, until you've got that, you shouldn't do anything else. But you need to have something that makes you unique, something that makes you memorable, because there are a lot of speakers out there, a huge number of speakers out there. So those are two things that are really important, unique and memorable. You also need to have expertise that's relevant, and you need to be really clear in what your client is going to get from booking you, so that you can express it in the client's language, not in your language, but in the client's language, so that they recognize, okay, that's what I'm going to get. And then, of course, you've got to be clear how you're going to work, because there are certain speakers who are brilliant for stage keynote speakers, and then they're brilliant speakers who are better at workshops and training sessions. So you've got to decide, where's my area?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Now, I feel like I'm liking the digging today. I want to dig a bit more. Like, what are some unique traits you have seen, where maybe you have signed someone new and you're like, because of that unique trait, I signed them. Like, what are some things that really make speakers stand out?
Okay, let me give you a couple of wonderful examples that I love. And these are two speakers that I book a lot because they are unique and because they're memorable. And when I describe them to a client, the client gets excited because they see and hear how unique they are too. So, for example, a lot of clients have issues with communication and negotiation in particular. So there's lots of different speakers you can recommend on those two subjects, lots of different speakers. But here's one you will never forget. And you don't even need to know his name, because you will describe him as I will describe him. And then anybody who's in a bureau will know who that is. There's so negotiation, a former hostage negotiator who in his session reenacts a hostage situation where the most senior person is taken hostage by one of his colleagues, and he gets the audience to negotiate the hostage, his freedom, and he calls that topic life or death listening.
Wow.
Now, you will never forget that.
No.
First time I heard that gave me goosebumps, because I thought, this is unique, it's memorable, and I would love to be part of that.
Totally. Wow. Yes, that's an amazing example.
So that's one example. Let me give you another example. So economics can be incredibly boring if you're not an economist, and can be very difficult to understand. But how wonderful when you have a former international poker player explaining economics to you through poker. Who then will, after in the evening, teach you how to play poker and will stay up playing poker with you guys for the evening. Now, you're not going to forget that either.
Yes. Okay. Because honestly, when you said uniqueness first, I thought it's kind of like a given thing they're born with, but it's really something like, for example, the poker guy, he really thought that through and thought about the unique angle he can bring to his topic.
Well, actually, he started off as an economist who then went into poker because he realised the parallels.
Amazing. And then he brought it together. That's really, really amazing. Okay, cool. So everyone listening, that's really something to think about. Like, what's a unique angle, right? So when I speak, for example, I'm from East Germany, and I often weave in this whole communism and the background and how I grew up, and, you know, kind of use examples from this era about Gorbachev. And it just sometimes really gets people to think in a very different way. So it's, yes, the unique angle, but maybe start with unique stories you can really make your content come alive with, or really start thinking. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into, because I know we've discussed this so many times, you know, a speaker, for example, when we were running the Female Speakers Conference, like the number of applications we got was incredible. The people who had really good footage, you could count on one hand. Now, footage is a given, you know, super important. I personally don't have a speaker reel. I have seen some really good ones. I have seen some really bad speaker reels. You know, this is when there are just some like cut elements of you speaking on different stages, but maybe sometimes just half an hour, you know, sample talk of you is powerful enough to get your client to have a flavor of the speaker. But apart from the footage, what are perhaps some of the lesser known insider criteria used to choose speakers?
Well, again, it depends who the target audience is, but referrals are great. If somebody is saying this speaker was great, I mean, I love it when a client, not when another speaker refers a speaker. That unfortunately doesn't carry the same weight for me, because a speaker recommending another speaker hasn't actually put their hand in their pocket and paid for that speaker. But if a client says to me, look, you know, last year we had a new client, often a new client will come to me and I'll say, well, who did you have last year and who did you book them through and why have you come to me? And then they might say to me, well, we had this person, absolutely fantastic, you know, we sourced them ourselves or whatever. I will always go and check that person out and have a look. And that's often how I recruit people, because if my client is buying somebody, I know there's a need, I know there's a requirement, and I know also if they're telling me that they're good and they delivered. So that's possibly a lesser known way. And going back to the speakers recommending speakers can recommend other speakers to clients if they're dealing directly with a client. If you're dealing directly with one of your clients, and they say, who shall I have next year? And you happen to have a relationship with another speaker who complements what you're talking about, of course you can recommend each other. And that's a great source of getting more work. I'm not sure if that's what you're meaning, because you were talking about footage. For me, footage, unless you are super busy already, footage is vital, because you're asking a client to book you without having seen you. So unless they can come and see you live, footage is the next best thing. If you are a household name, you mentioned Branson, you don't need footage. If you are, you know, the CEO who's just stepped down from a huge company, you don't need footage, because a client will be happy to take you on. But if you're somebody who's competing with lots of other people who are very in the same space and in the same price bracket, you're going to give yourself an advantage if you've got footage.
Makes total sense. And you know what, like when we run our club nights here in London, we always have a camera guy there, and he is so affordable. I wouldn't say cheap, because that really devalues it. He is, and it's just the wrong word, but he is so affordable, and it's so easy to really get some really good quality footage together, given that you are entertaining and intriguing. You know, I don't know if you had this as well before, like people would send me little videos where they just speak to camera, there's no audience, or they say, oh, I've recently done a Facebook Live. It's just not the same, is it?
No, but I have to say that when somebody is videoing you at an event and when they're videoing you for a show reel or for a client to book you, it's a very different type of camera work.
Yeah.
And if you've got to think about, if you're using it to sell yourself to somebody who's sitting behind a computer, I actually don't want to see an audience. I don't care. I want to see the speaker, and I want to see the speaker up front. And
that's so interesting. I love seeing the audience. I love their reaction. And, you know, sometimes you have like a speaker and cracks a joke and then it swoops over into the audience and people are laughing. And, you know, compared to like having their arms crossed, I really love, a speaker who can uncross an audience's arms. It's powerful.
That's lovely if that's what you're catching on film, but more often than not, you're actually catching somebody who's looking at their BlackBerry, reading the agenda, getting up to go to the toilet, the room's half empty, or the room is a huge room and the person's filming from the back to show the huge audience. You can't even see the speaker. Yeah. The speakers from the side and you see the side of their head, or you're looking up their nose. So you have to think about how you're filming it.
It's a real skill. You're so right. And
it's very different, very different. A show reel and footage for somebody to book from a computer and event filming are two different objectives. Therefore, it can be the same cameraman, but he has to know what the point is of filming it.
Yeah, totally. Oh, and I think I could ask you 1,000 questions. I won't. But if you have, and let's see, you might kind of not want to answer that, but what topics are paid the best? And I know it depends on, what's really current. So let's say currently, what topics just fly off the shelf?
Actually, paid the best probably isn't the right wording, but the ones that will never go out of fashion, if I could change it, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So anything to do with people is always relevant, always. So, always looking at leadership, always looking at, motivation, engagement, performance, teamwork. Those kinds of topics are always, and communication, always there because they're always an issue, unless we all turn into robots or we all stop working and there's only robots. So those are the ones that are always there. And then the other ones that I find everybody's fascinated by and wants to know, everyone wants to know about the future, whether it's the financial and economic future or it's technology future, society, demographics. People want to have put the finger in the air and think what's happening next. So those two are always big, those two areas.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes so much sense. So currently, if we're looking at the speaker booking industry, are there any trends you can see or anything that 10 years ago was like this and now 10 years later it's completely different? Like, what are some of the changes or the trends you're noticing?
There have been huge changes, enormous changes in speaking. I've been in the industry for 20 years, so I'll probably give you a longer view than even 10. And when I started 20 years ago, there were fewer expert speakers, fewer speakers out there that were speaking. People didn't know you could go out and get paid to speak, or fewer people knew it. And now everybody who is anybody is a speaker. So what you have is you have a huge amount of choice for clients, and a lot of them feel overwhelmed, which is why they come to bureaus. There's just an overwhelming choice. And also in the last 10 years, last 20 years, of course, we've gone very global. You can now book a speaker from any part of the world because of the internet. You can access any talent. So it doesn't have to be somebody who's local, whereas, 20 years ago, even maybe 10 years ago, you would perhaps pick from a more local pool. You can now say, well, actually, which country has the leading edge on this particular area? So they're the experts in pharma, or they're the experts in health, they're the experts in farming. Who's the expert there in that particular topic? I'm going to bring that person in. So you have a much bigger pool to choose from. So that's changed hugely. Plus, as I said, many more speakers. And of course, now many more speaker bureaus, many more agents, much more choice on the internet. And often it's the people who are very good at marketing themselves, the bureaus, the agents, the speakers, who are getting a lot of bandwidth and attention, not necessarily the best.
Interesting. But yeah, it makes sense. And it's not only in speaking. When I came to London years ago, I walked into the Tate Modern and I was like, what is this shit, excuse my French, on the wall? I just honestly didn't appreciate it. And I've seen some cutting edge art in Berlin in some of the lesser known galleries. But because some people have so many good connections and can sell themselves, it's in any sector, really. That's how they get ahead.
Yeah. It is interesting, really interesting. So the world has changed dramatically. When I started in the world of work, to tell you how old I am, we had telex. and we were using telex and faxes for our contracts. I mean, you don't do that now. I mean, you sign it digitally. We'd only started really the internet had just sort of started to have an effect on business. And the internet has completely changed the way we do business. Totally.
Amazing. I can't wait to see what's next. Like, obviously my favorite is teleportation, but who knows if I will live that long. Now, one question I always get asked a lot, and I'd love to ask you, like, what is your number one tip to monetize your speaking?
I think you have to really understand the value that you bring and be able to position yourself correctly and communicate that correctly. So I suppose the number one tip will be to understand the audience. Who are the people that are likely to book you? What are their needs? Where's their pain point? What are they looking for? What's going on? So maybe you might want to employ futurists to find out what's going in your audiences, in the audience as well. But yeah, if you can understand what your audience needs and what they're paying for, then you can focus what your business should look like, I think. Is that good advice?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you know what? And, I feel one of the biggest things when people listen is really, and I'm talking to you guys now, not to you, Maria, but use your brain. We're all gifted with a brain. And it's really making use of it in the sense of you will get so many different, tips and tricks and advice from different people. Test, use, refine what feels right for you. Because as an example, when I used to start speaking and selling from stage, my mentor would tell me, I don't like him now anymore, but he would say a certain thing to me. I won't even say what it is, so embarrassing. But I then would do it from stage when I was selling our programs, and it totally backfired because it wasn't my personality. I didn't feel authentic doing it, and it was terrible. To really use what is right for you. And that's really the most important thing with all the advice, all the free advice, especially, you can get out there, right?
That is such good advice, Annik. That is probably the thing to take away from this podcast. That is brilliant, because everybody's looking for a blueprint or a step-by-step guide and do this, do that, and do the other. And actually, at the end of the day, everybody has their own experience, their own business, their own model, and you've got to do what works for you. And I'm easily led astray, as you know, because I buy things and my garage is full. And I'm led astray with business ideas as well. And when I read lots of business books and I try different things, and you have to be authentic to what works for you. That thing is so important. So maybe the business tip, the best tip, is to really get to know yourself and what works for you.
Yeah, but also, I love experimenting. Like, I'm glad I did like all those stupid things when I started. And it's really remembering, if you're there listening to this and you're just in the process of starting out, you got to get through those first few awkward gigs. It gets better. Trust me. I was so bad at the beginning. You have no idea. And so, Maria, you negotiate a lot.
I do.
What are some of the negotiating tricks to land higher fees? Like, what could you pass on to our audience so they can, let's say, right now they're negotiating their own fees and, someone offers them £800. How can they negotiate up a little bit or a lot?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to critique you that. I really don't like the word tricks. I never want to trick anybody into doing anything, and I never want to have a trick. So let's say tips. Tips, if you don't mind.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah. So I think first of all, you need to know your worth. You need to know your value in the market. So that takes a bit of research. So you need to compare yourself with other people who are out there delivering something similar and see what. And actually, it's not difficult to do because lots of websites have fee ranges. So you'll be able to deduce the sort of fee range that somebody is in. And bear in mind that if it's a bureau that's putting a fee range on, that bureau will have their percentage markup on there. So, of course, you're going to want to be slightly lower than the fee range that you're looking at. So that's a starting point to say, what is my value? And then when you know your value, you have to know a negotiation is not discounting. So if somebody is coming to you and you have decided your value is £1,500 as an example, and that client is saying to you, I'd like you to for £800, you just dropping your price is a discount. It's not a negotiation. So you have to know, when will you reduce your fee? So if you're 1,500 and you've decided that's it, you should stick to it at times when you are busy, at times when the market's busy. So you need to understand, again, your audience. When are they busy? When are they running their events? When are they running their conferences? You do not discount on your fee at that time of year. So do some research, and the client will understand that. And if you say, look, this is my fee, this is peak time you're asking me to speak, I cannot discount. However, if you would like me to come back in these months where I'm quieter, I would be delighted to do the event for you for £800. That's when you discount.
Yeah. Now, I'm just sitting here laughing at myself, like, guys, do never let anyone like Annik negotiate for you, because she would go in low and then trying to get a higher price for you, obviously.
You go in higher and come down always. And then the other thing is, if you have to negotiate, then you don't do something. So the client, you would say, normally I would come and spend a full day with you, Mr. Client. If you're asking me to negotiate, please could we have me speak first thing in the morning? I will stay for the morning instead of the full day, or have me speak just before lunch. I can't stay the full day. I will stay half a day and therefore get myself another event that afternoon. A negotiation is a give and take. It's not the winner takes it all, as that ABBA song goes. So it has to be a negotiation. So know when you will reduce your fee. Now, there are times when you will discount, and there's times when you'll speak for free. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So for me, if you're trying out brand new material, that's the time to discount. That's the time to even do it for free, because that's a valid reason. And if you're trying out new material and you've never tried it before, if you're not charging, there's no risk to anybody on that. And it's fair enough. And you should, to be fair, if you've got new material, you should be doing it discounted for a while anyway, until you're very confident with it, unless you're a really experienced speaker. And then, of course, it's easy for you to try new material, because for a start, you'll only try bits of new material. You won't have to be trying lots of new material, because you already have established content that works, that you'll just be tweaking. So that's a time when you do it. And of course, if you're selling from stage, you would be doing it for free. I don't deal with anybody that sells from stage, because that's not our model. And if you are promoting your business, you will speak for free. Or if you're not allowed to charge, there are many speakers we work with who are not allowed to charge because of the role that they have. It might be a political role, for example. And so then what we tend to do is ask for a charitable donation. That would go, because I always believe that you should be compensated, otherwise the client doesn't value your time. Yeah. And so a charitable donation is an elegant way of compensating a speaker.
Makes total sense. So from everything we have discussed so far, there isn't really one thing where you suddenly go from starting out to cashing in a fee of £3,000 the next week.
No, but that's life. You everything is bit by bit, step by step. What happens is, like you see these musicians that you think, oh my goodness, you're an overnight success, and then they say, actually, I've been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. It's the same with speakers who are charging thousands of pounds. You think if you talk to them, they'll say, I did it for 15 years before I started charging a proper fee. You can't go from zero to hero unless, as I said, you're super topical, you've just come out of a big role, you've done something spectacular, or you are the exception to the rule. There's always an exception to the rule. Yeah, totally. Wow. Thank you so much for really passing your expertise on. Now, where can people find you? If anyone listening here now is like, I don't know, you might be sitting in Australia, under Harbour Bridge, sipping your cocktail, thinking, wow, I need to get in touch with Maria. How can people do that? What's the best way? Well, why don't they tag me in your group? That would be a great way. Yeah, sure. We definitely do that. But you run and they can find me. I run a Facebook group as well called Speaking Business, and it's basically the lessons from speaker bureaus that people can use to, grow their speaking business. So we complement each other, don't we, really, in what we do. Totally. And so, yes, so you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm actually today, I haven't even checked it. I've been that busy. Today, my new website aimed at speakers specifically should have launched, and that's called speakingbusiness.co.
Ooh, I'm going to have a look in a minute.
Yeah, me too.
Super exciting. Now, right now, at the time we're recording this, it's September 2018. And in October 2018, Maria will come to our monthly club night here in London and be on a panel for half an hour. She will be, I remember you said specifically to me, Annik, I'm not a speaker, you can ask me questions, which I totally respect. So we will have Maria there.
Yeah, super. Will there be wine?
You know what, I have to make sure there will be wine after you're speaking.
And then I'm there, I'll be there.
Totally. And if you're listening to that and it's past October 2018, have a look at the Speaker Express YouTube channel because there will be a recording there. Now, thanks very much. Is there anything, like any further wisdom or, someone once said this to you and you love passing that on to other people? Any last words?
There is actually, and I'm going to credit the person who said this to me, he's one of the speakers I work with. His name is Phil Hesketh, and he's an expert in persuasion. And he gave me the best bit of business advice I have ever had, and I would like you all to hold on to this. I think it's brilliant. He said, do what you say you're going to do. And I think it's fantastic. And if you think about when you get bad service or you think about when you've had a bad experience, it's because somebody hasn't done what they said they were going to do. So if you say you're going to phone somebody on Friday, phone them on Friday or don't say it.
Perfect. Thank you. I love that so much. Now, honestly, everything you said really, really resonated. Remember, guys, we are spreading that wisdom, not as tricks. Remember, there are no tricks here. They're all tips and solid advice. And I will remember this as well and cross the word trick off my questions. I love it. Honestly, it's great. And I can only leave you with, no matter where you are right now, remember, there are 7.3 billion people on this planet. There is a stage for you, no matter your expertise, no matter how long you have been doing it. If you're just starting out or, if you have been doing this for many, many years, there is a stage for you. Get out there. And I hope I see you on or off stage over the next months. All the best from Annik and Maria.